Well, good morning everybody, and how are you doing today? That's great, glad to hear it. We have a car, I know, shocking. Ready? And it's a Toyota Corolla. For this Toyota Corolla, what we're doing is we're replacing an existing radio. He's got an app radio 4 in there, and he's tired of being wired. Now, an app radio 4, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, was a radio Pioneer came out with that was it was a precursor to like CarPlay and Android Auto. Didn't work out so well. As far as if you're an Apple guy, you wanted a really cool radio, it worked really nice. I owned one myself. I enjoyed it a lot. We're gonna put an iLx 107. He wants to go wireless. Let's take a look inside. So this customer has had the App Radio 3 upgraded to the App Radio 4, which the App Radio 4, when it came out, Alpine had a competing radio, which was the 007. They looked very similar, except the Alpine was a 7-inch touchscreen, but it still had this cool chrome bezel around it. Now he's ready to take the plunge, go into an Alpine. He doesn't want this cool cable hanging out here. We are going to relocate the iLx's cable into this so that he can close it, not see it, just in case he does need to do charge. Otherwise, let's get this guy out of the dash and replace it with an Alpine.
This video is brought to you by The Boring Life of Dean and Haley, now showing on YouTube.
So for those of you that aren't familiar with the iLx 107, let's take a look. Comes with a bag of goodies. And then the radio itself is a L-shaped frame. So this is the top here, this is the bottom. For those of you that might need something like this on an install, this is something to keep in mind. They have several radios like this in the Alpine line. If it's a non-CD DVD player, they all use this same chassis. So this isn't just the 107, the 207 has it, the navigation system has it. It's just their platform for building when it's a mechaless unit. The real fun comes in this bag here. You get a GPS antenna. Now this unit doesn't have GPS, but because of the wireless nature of it, they assume the phone might be in your pocket, your purse, your backpack, or somewhere where the GPS might not work as well. That's why they have the outboard GPS antenna. You have your CarPlay microphone. Now I say CarPlay microphone instead of Bluetooth microphone because anybody that has done anything with CarPlay realizes that CarPlay automatically shuts off the Bluetooth to conserve on energy. This unit, although it has Bluetooth, the only thing the Bluetooth in it does is pair your device to turn on the Wi-Fi. So it's not really Bluetooth. Bag of screws, a trim bezel if needed, and it's got all these harness bags here. Oh, it also has a USB extension. The USB in this is for two reasons. One, obviously to charge the phone if need be, and when it's plugged in it will do wired CarPlay. And two, to do any form of updates that might be necessary for the unit down the road. Now it can't do thumb drives, can't do hard drives. It's those two things. That's it. Real quick before we talk about these, this is the semi-useless instruction manual. And I'm not being mean, it's useless. It won't tell you how to pair your phone. It's a quick start guide that isn't really quick. If you want to know more about your radio, go and download the actual instruction manual because this is useless. So we have 4 individual harnesses that come with the Alpines. You have your RCA harness. This is for amplifiers. So you have your front, rear, sub, RC outputs here. Now this unit, most hated unit in car audio because it only has a 2-volt output. This is the RCAs that will carry the 2 volts. Your main power plug. Then you have this 3rd harness here, which is for your camera, your auxiliary input, your iData link connection, as well as a speed pulse. And then you have your microphone input and your steering wheel input as well. So those are the 4 harnesses that come with the radio. Even though he wouldn't need necessarily like these 2 harnesses here, we're gonna go ahead and plug them in so that they're not in the box, because the box typically get thrown away. And then if he comes and he decides, hey, I want to add a camera or I want to add amplifiers, and then we're like, yeah. The secret behind all of these is that it still has that aux input here. That aux input is a full AV input. So you can buy a Kenwood CA-C3AV auxiliary input adapter. That's the one that has the 1/8 inch on one end and the 3 RCAs on the other. Then you can hook up an iSimple Media Links, get HDMI input of this, and actually watch HDMI video on this radio. So it's not a total bookend. Don't get me wrong, I really like this. It's you guys that are having such a hard time with this. So this is the radio we're taking out. This is the App Radio 4. I don't know why they did, these would be the brackets if you had like the cool little, I call them wings that attach to the side of the radio. It looks like somebody screwed them on, then broke them off. Kind of odd. This is the dash kit here. It's just a simple snap-on. Doesn't need those. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Who knows? I mean, this is the 3rd time there's a radio being installed in here. Strange things can happen. Let's go ahead and get these off. The one problem with this style design, where they decided to go under instead of over, is that most radios, as you saw, we pulled out those 3 screws. There's a hole that lines up here, there's a hole that lines up here, and there's a hole that lines up here. But as you can see, this hole doesn't line up. That's why there was no screw there. That's how most aftermarket radios are. That 4th hole here, for whatever reason, it's just not ever gonna line up with this. It's odd, I know, but now we're moving on to this, where the 2 screws were on the top and the 1 screw is on the bottom. That's gonna be a problem, because if we take this over here and remove it, Alpine didn't think of that, or they don't even know it. So as you can see, there's only 1 screw that can go in to hold this in place now. That other screw here, it's not there. So now we have to go ahead and cut this so that we can get the 2 screws that we need, so this radio just doesn't sit there and do this in the dash. The other thing to keep in mind is this uses coarse screws, this uses fine screws. So what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to cut this right here, flatten this piece out because it's got a curve to it, and then cut this hole deeper. So we've gone ahead and pounded this area flat. So now we'll go ahead and make our cut here to make this hole bigger, and we'll have room for this to screw down. Alright, so there we go. Now we have 2, so the bracket's nice and tight. So we'll go ahead and do the other side. So we got the radio all done. Wiring harness time. So apparently he has a backup camera. That's this guy right here. We need to reinstall with the 1761 harness here. Let's go ahead and take the 1761 harness into the car and see if it has a power antenna or an amp turn on. Even though they didn't use it in the previous install, let's just double check. Alright, so I bet this guy's FM reception was wonderful because they didn't have the amplified antenna hooked up. Awesome. Alright, well, we'll get better FM reception now. So moral to the story, anytime you're replacing a radio, pulling out one and putting a new one in, don't assume that the guy before you actually did the legwork to see what was in the car. Always check for yourself. So the Toyota harness uses basic colors, and we're going to talk about them real quick here because we're doing an Alpine, and Alpine is different than Pioneer and Kenwood. It's not different too much, but anyways, let's get to it. You have the rear speaker plugs, purple, green, passenger, driver, and then you have the main power harness. You have your white and grays, white's driver, gray's passenger. Let's move on to the power ones though. You know black is ground. We just talked about blue. In this case, it's going to be amplified antenna. The little loop there would be if this was also an amplified system. We have red red, which is accessory, and we have yellow, which is memory. And then we have this guy right here, orange-white. Now you guys know from watching the show that orange-white is illumination. Keep that at the back of your mind for right now. Let's move over here to this Alpine harness. Alpine has the same 8 speaker wires that we just talked about, so cool there. It has a yellow and a black. It has this guy, this yellow with a blue stripe. This is the emergency brake wire. This radio doesn't do any video, it doesn't have a DVD player, it doesn't have anything like that. This has to be hooked up, and that's to get into the menus of the radio. Without this hooked up, there's no menu access. We're gonna go ahead and use a micro bypass so we don't have to sit there and pull the brake up and down to access the menu system in this. So that'll accomplish that. Just for you guys out there that are like, hey, wait, whoa, this micro bypass is the same micro bypass you use on the Pioneer radios. You don't have to get the Alpine one, it's just a simple 3-wire hookup. This one is the same one you use for the Pioneer radios. The light green wire is gonna go to the yellow blue wire. Now with the Alpines, we have a blue, which is the amplified antenna, and a blue-white, which is remote turn-on. So for this, we will be using the blue. We have a red that is accessory, and then we got this guy here, which is orange-white. That is so long. Look at how long this thing, it just goes on forever. And now you're thinking, oh, well, that's no big deal. This has got an orange-white, I'll just hook it up. Total wrong move. This guy right here is the reverse wire. That's why it's so long. Alpine doesn't have an illumination wire for these radios. It's an auto thing, it auto senses. It has a photo strobe built into the front of the radio, so when the interior gets dark, it automatically gets dark. This orange-white is not illumination, it is the reverse trigger. Don't just be like robot hooking this thing up, not thinking, hook this up, boom. No. As soon as you turn on your lights, it's automatically gonna flick over the backup camera. And then you're gonna be like, where do I hook up? Yeah, so, okay. So now what we need to do is marriage these two together so we can get into the car. So the harness is done. Fernando is done running all the cable and mounted our USB down here so he can easily plug it in like we said. GPS antenna is located up here underneath the air vent, right where the other one was. The Bluetooth microphone is right above next to the mirror. Let's go ahead and get our harness plugged in, get this guy out of here. Now one of the nice things about their USB is okay, watch me plug this in there. That thing goes in there so deep. It's really nice. It won't affect the install. That kit? Yeah, I like that kit too. Let's turn it on. See if it works. What's the weather like today?
Expect cloudy skies starting in the afternoon, and clear skies tonight with mixed conditions for the rest of the day.
Alright, this car is done. It's got a cool new CarPlay, no cords. It's like a Pinocchio's dream come true. Anyways, we're gonna get this out of here. On to the next one.